November 11, 12, 13 is the date. And that was one. Littleton City Council study session is now in session. Our first presenter is Kay, and this will be on the future needs of Littleton Senior Services. You want to go ahead, Kay?
Sure. And Peggy, will this work okay? You can see fine?
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
That was too big of a smile. Okay. There are three big trends in the United States right now with our population. The first of which is we are getting bigger. We have more and more people all the time. We are becoming more ethnically and racially diverse, and we are also getting older. This is due in large part to an increased proportion of people who are 65 and over. An interesting statistic is that 1 American turns 50 every 7 seconds, or 12,500 people are turning 50 a day. So who are these folks? So they are the 77 million Americans who were born between 1946 and 1964. Shortly following World War II, it was a time of great prosperity for our country. A sense of stability was felt by everybody, and there was a lot of opportunity for employment and going back to school and having families, and that's what a lot of people did. They got married and they had children. This particular group is known as the baby boomers, and also known as the silver tsunami in some crowds. So our oldest boomer is 67 years old, and our youngest is 49, which means that next year our last boomers will be age 50 and over. So this is a snapshot of our population in 2010. The white bars show baby boomers, and for the purposes of my talk, I have defined senior citizens as age 62 and older. Several of the charts in here have different day or different age cutoffs, and although all of the data is from the U.S. Census Bureau, for some reason they put them together with different years. So on this particular chart then, right here, I'm not nervous at all, you can't see it shaking, is age 62. And so at that point, if you are 62 and now a senior, you are 5 years into the wave. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So this is a glance at Colorado, and this is from the U.S. Census Bureau, and they said that in 2000 there were 500,000 folks who were age 60 and over, so I'm focusing on the last number over here. And in 2030, they predicted that there would be 1.1 million folks that age.
Okay, could not to disrupt you, but could you back up one slide?
Mm-hmm.
Peggy, talk in your neck louder.
Pardon? Jeez. So this was 2010.
Yes.
And the 60 to 64, which is a pretty high little bar there.
I can't hear.
So you can't hear me now? Jeez. I'm gonna.
Click on your right.
On this side, yeah. And you're looking up there.
Okay, folks.
Flip it to your nose.
I'm going to strap my head straight so that I turn together. He's going to get me one that goes over the ear that he's got at home, and we'll test that next time. So, so the 60 to 64 there, since next year is 2014, that's going to really push up that next bump, obviously significantly on over. Right, I mean, all those are going to be moving over.
Right, and so they've moved over 3 this year. So the folks that were 59 are now seniors.
Yeah. So, I mean, anyway. So
it's coming, the wave's coming.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure, so this is Colorado, and then a glimpse at Arapahoe County. Very similar look for Arapahoe County. The state demographer's office said that there were roughly 30,000 people in 1990 that were over the age 65 or over, and in 2040 they predicted there'd be 170,000 of them.
Okay, with that,
Yes.
you know what, in parallel to that last one, what will be the population of Arapahoe County that parallels that projections?
For all ages?
Yeah.
I don't have that, but I can get that.
Wondering who's going to be around to take care of the
Yeah.
real folks like me.
I got you back, man. For a couple of years.
So Littleton looks a lot like those last two charts. Here we just put together 2010 to 2030. So the State Demographer's Office did this for me and made me promise that I would say this is not a prediction. This is only a forecast, but it's based on the numbers that we have had. And so in 2010, we had 6,575 seniors down here. And she gave me two forecasts, a low forecast and a high forecast for the numbers that we would have in 2030. This is for age 65 plus. So in 2030, the low forecast was 10,500 folks 65 and over. And then in 2030, it would be 14,500. On the high side up here, we would have 11,000 of these folks by 2020 and 16,000 by 2030. So this is just putting it all together, and we're all on the same trend, that's for sure, the state, the county, and us. We have more seniors, though. Obviously, this is our wave up here, and we had, in 2010, several more people who were 60, 65 and older. And this is an interesting chart. So we took all the communities around us within 26 miles, that's right, and 30,000 people as populations and put them on here. And Littleton ranks number 2. For those things that say CDP, that's a census designated place. So these are cohesive areas with enough people to be defined as a place by the U.S. Census Bureau. So although they aren't a specific town or a city, they are counted like them. The gentleman that I've been working with in Wheat Ridge is really a nice guy, and I put this thing together and sent it to him, and his comment was, "Are we winning?" Which I thought was good. So our current situation is that we have seniors aging in large numbers. Our federal, state, and local funding is down for resources. Is our community prepared to meet those needs? So the Denver Regional Council of Governments has a good idea of what the needs are. We don't know exactly what the needs are for our seniors in Littleton at this time, but the Denver Regional Council of Governments is an area agency on aging. So it's the organization that's under the state, under the federal government as a result of the Older Americans Act. And it is their job to find out what the needs are, to make sure that the resources are there, and then to help the cities that are within their designation, and we happen to be in there. There's like 16 different area agency on aging in Colorado, and we're one of them. So these areas are probably pretty similar to what we'll find when we, if we have a look at Littleton. So health, oops, sorry about that. Health is talking about physical, mental, emotional health, basic needs, food, clothing, utilities, and that type of thing. Housing is not just affordable housing, but housing with accessibility for getting around, ramps and handrails and things like that. 79% of seniors would like to age in place in their homes, and making it easier for them to get around is something that they have said they want. Accessibility, getting around in the community, so sidewalks, streets that have, or lights at intersections that last long enough for them to get across the street, handrails and ramps and that kind of thing. Safety, safety and security. So such that a senior would feel safe to be in their house or to go out and stay plugged into the community and feel independent. This could be infrastructure in terms of, it could be for lighting, for line of sight, for places where they're crossing and where they're getting around. It could also be programmatic, like the neighborhood watch programs. And then engagement is just that, places for seniors to go in the community to do things and volunteer and to have fun and have their contributions heard, so that they can be a part of the community. And then transportation, the biggie, accessibility, or excuse me, mobility and easy access to transportation, because that's pretty much number one thing for maintaining your independence and getting around. So we may not know exactly what our needs are in Littleton, but we do have a lot of community resources in our area. For human services, I'll go really fast because I know you know most of these, but Arapahoe County Senior Services covers heavy and light chore assistance, food, finance, medical, that kind of thing. Arapahoe Douglas Mental Health, mental health care, clergy, all types of outreach depending on the organization. Doctors care, affordable health care, and interfaith community services, same type of thing as Arapahoe County, except for much more specific food and clothes, help with employment, training, and that kind of thing. Littleton Adventist Hospital is working on balance and injury programs for seniors. And the Seniors Resource Center, which is an organization that has, I think, 4 or 5 offices, mostly north of here. They provide mostly adult daycare and in-home care, and they're plugged in with the Arapahoe Douglas Mental Health Network in reaching seniors and talking to them about mental health issues. And then TLC Meals on Wheels, which is food. Just more resources, so South Suburban, Parks and Rec, as well as the YMCA, fun classes to take as well as recreational classes, and both of them have Silver Sneakers programs. And for senior advocacy, the American Association of Retired Persons provide advocacy in Washington and Colorado, and a lot of it is on behalf of Social Security and Medicare. They also provide discounts and get information out there. They're also very good at finding you when you're 49 years old.
Or the spouse of someone who is 50 or older.
They don't waste any time. Arapahoe County Council on Aging. So of the Denver Regional Council of Governments is an area agency on aging, and sort of a subset of them is having folks get together on a more local level, so they're at the county level. This is an all-volunteer effort, although some of the funding does come from DRCOG, but it is all volunteers who come together, and they look at addressing issues that are local for seniors and finding resources. And for example, they held the last senior fair at the Buck Center. And then DRCOG down here, the Denver Regional Council of Governments, as I mentioned, they advocate from the state and the federal government.
So back up to recreation. The college also has Silver Sneakers recreation, exercise facilities.
Who else does?
ACC.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Transportation, or Arapahoe County Arapahoe County Senior Services has First Ride. RTD has Senior Ride and Senior Shopper. And they have other programs like Access-A-Ride and Call-and-Ride, which some of those work for seniors as well. And then the Seniors Resource Center, they provide, they have their own fleet, and they travel around, and all of these services, as well as omnibus and shopping cart, are doing medical runs, regular errands, shopping, just general things for people to get around. Other areas of resources include Littleton Public Schools, which has a volunteer program for seniors, and then the Seniors Resource Center has a volunteer program for seniors as well. And what do we have? So we have South Metro Housing Options, which provides subsidized and managed housing programs. We have our omnibus and our shopping cart. And then Bemis Library has a wealth of things for seniors. We have classes for them, like tax preparation. We have computer classes. We have a homebound book delivery program. We have a large print book program. And also several volunteers work there and from our community, from our senior community, as well as the museum and the Police Citizens Academy, a lot of volunteers in there. And of course, we have our senior refund program, and then snow removal program, and we have safety programs with the fire department and the police department for seniors, and then the community gardens, which a lot of seniors participate in using.
So, Kay, it's interesting, the word volunteer. Some of the volunteering means seniors can volunteer to do things,
Yeah.
but then, like at the library, seniors can do, anybody of certain ages can volunteer, seniors and otherwise, but the library also has programs that outreach to seniors in their homes.
Right.
They have the homebound book delivery and so forth, so it's a multiple kind of volunteering that we're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, yes. So, as part of my research into this, I looked at statistics, obviously, and demographics. Also resources, but looked at other communities, and I visited other places. And I felt like these two communities, Wheat Ridge and Jefferson County, are just doing an amazing job. They both have well-organized programs, and they haven't both done all of these things on the list, but I thought I would just kind of put it all together. One thing that they both did do was administered a survey or an assessment to their seniors in their community. On the next item,
What does that mean?
Yes.
What kind of assessment?
oh, okay, good question. So the National Research Center developed a survey specific to seniors based on a project that was partially developed by Jefferson County. They helped come up with all the questions, and so did a number of other communities. And so it's sort of it's for Colorado. And so the National Research Center makes this assessment available to all communities. It's called the CASOA, and it's a really long instrument, but if people take it, the nice thing is that you can compare yourself with all the other communities and see where you stand. So there's a real consistency.
Oh, in terms of services provided and...
Yeah, what their needs are, what they, what
Okay.
seniors feel like they're missing or
Thank
want
you.
more of, or in their.
Thank you.
And so the second line here, so Dr. Cog developed, they have a Boomer Bond project, which is several years back they started focusing on seniors and have funding, and they've done a lot of research around it and developed those specific categories. But they also designed an assessment that you could give to your city staff. It's for municipalities, and people on staff who work in various capacities of design with the city can take these assessments and weigh in and give ideas on how we could possibly do our design that is just much more accommodating for seniors in the future. They both Wheat Ridge and Jeffco organized community groups. I mean, it's sort of when resources are tight and we all pull together and coming together and sharing ideas. The gentleman from Wheat Ridge said they have saved a lot of money in the community getting rid of a duplication of services by doing that. And Wheat Ridge is they're newer in the process, but Jefferson County has developed a whole bunch of subgroups with their large collaborative community group. And it's the most amazing thing that I saw in all my research, because they are 6 years into their work. They have 6 working subcommittees which are made of stakeholders in the community, and they're so successful and independent that they don't really even need the support of the staff at Jeffco anymore, which is pretty amazing because, I mean, there's a lot of support that goes into getting meetings ready and agendas, and they're really making some neat strides. And then they both developed strategic plans, big plans for addressing senior needs. So I have put together suggestions of action items for Littleton, which are very similar to what we just looked at. I think having a senior assessment done with our seniors here would be a good idea. The National Research Center did develop the survey that we used for our Inspire project last summer. So there are some questions in there that we can use. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. I would suggest the senior assessment as well to really pick the brains of our staff and find out.
I guess I was just going to ask if hypothetically, and maybe I don't want to, I can whittle in if you want to keep going.
It's okay. I'm pretty much there.
If Jeffco's got all his data, why not just use their data? I mean, is it likely that our seniors are going to have dramatically different responses than seniors in Jeffco?
Yeah, because we're special.
Yeah.
Oh, we are special. That's true.
It depends on who you talk to, but like Denver Regional Council of Government says, do your own community and know exactly what your needs are in there. So I think you kind of have to decide how much you want to drill down.
Some of it will vary by areas and where seniors live within the community. Like, you're even going to have sub-elements, like some places you're going to have sidewalks and you're not going to have sidewalks. And that's going to be an issue that's specific to your community. And so some of those things will actually come up because of what you've done. Or, for example, our senior center is combined with the Buck Center now.
Right.
And that's accessible to some folks, but not as accessible to others.
But it also, Bruce, because I went to the Dr. Cog presentation on this. I forget who else went. Jim Taylor was involved in this, about 2 months ago. And some of it, too, is the economic status and the locations, whether you're in a building for seniors or you've got mainly standalone houses with seniors and all. So it's a whole complex of things to look at.
No, that's fair. It was mainly just, is there a way to short circuit or shortcut to get most of the info? But I understand what you guys are saying, and I don't have any problem with it. I mean, I think it's good information to get this, if it should be, and it sounds like it should be specific to Littleton.
Well, I think if we do the survey, then maybe what others have done then is a real big informer for us.
Now, what I am going to ask is, Arapahoe County had a subset. Is it possible to get specific to our community as a subset of the Arapahoe County survey that's done?
No, we can look at what they've done, but it'll be countywide. There isn't anything specific to Littleton in their survey.
So they can't separate out the data within that?
And we're planning on doing this, so these are not big dollar
Okay.
items, I think. I mean, part of this is just reaching out and to earlier conversations, it's an engagement with this segment of the community that's ours, and not taking it from somewhere else. So
Well,
there's value in both the internal city staff one or the community survey.
Because it ends up being a precursor to involvement.
Okay, how do you do it via mailing, or how do they?
Yes, it is. They send out, it's similar to the Inspire, but we wouldn't have those events. It is all through the mail, and they do like 3 reminders and that kind of thing.
They mail the survey, or the survey's online?
I don't think it's online. I think
Okay.
it's just through the mail.
Okay.
But they send out, a survey's coming,
Okay.
and then the survey, you know what I mean? So they have a very streamlined process that they've developed, which is pretty standard, I think.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Just to comment, the Littleton retreat talked about health issues, and that became one of their focal discussions. But the subset of it is how to connect into what exists by someone who has a need. And, there were so many things available that you had in your PowerPoint, but based on what we were talking about at the community retreat, how do you get someone to plug into them? And so my concern along that line would be that we do an assessment of senior citizens who are fairly well connected with what's going on in the community, but we might miss that subset.
Right.
As being
Right, I know, the people who aren't getting out, and people who aren't participating in going to the Buck Center. So Arapahoe Douglas Mental Health has a pilot where they have cards, you get trained. It's a lot like the Yellow Ribbon Suicide Prevention Program, which was just people are looking out for each other in the community. So, for example, you train someone to look for seniors who are pulling away and not getting out, not participating at all in community. So you could train a mailman, or mail lady,
Mail carrier.
to be looking for people who aren't participating there, or doctors, they have regular visits that they're not going to, or just Meals on Wheels is a great example of, they're going and it's 50% of it's social. So if we can train a number of people to plug into a network, and part of this pilot is there's a 1-800 number to call where you get a live person, and the person talks to whomever, and not only, they don't just say, ma'am, here, call this number. They say, what are your, how can we help you, and get a conversation going, and then that person will call the the place that will help them the most. So it's like a human connection that goes all the way around, which is what we're missing in our society. So.
But another piece of that is the people who don't speak English. A lot of the family may, but if they're home alone or whatever, and they maybe have not mastered English well enough, and maybe the whole family doesn't know about the resources.
Right.
So, the
It's
church
tough.
groups and others maybe also have heads up on these things.
Right, and that leads into the next, well, actually the one at the bottom, so I'll just skip to the one at the bottom, but bringing together all of our service providers, our agencies, organizations, churches, everybody, and through my process, I've been keeping track of all the people that I would invite if I were to have that, and there's like 50 different people, or 50 different organizations on there, but like you would train all of those people to connect, and you would hope that the networks that were there, you could get rid of the duplication, but you could improve those and reach more and more populations. That's an ideal.
I would just point out that, part of this convening was the success of DLII and the
Littleton Northeast Neighborhood, the Brisk Intervention Network.
But taking that same proven track record, and that's why the word convene is up there, because as you saw, the service delivery isn't through the city of Littleton, it's through all these other entities that are out there that are already providing the service. It's just as Councilman Beckman pointed out, it's one, bringing them all together, and then working together on how do they get that message out. So when somebody's looking for service delivery, whatever that is, that message goes there.
So we're a convener.
Convening.
And then I guess I'll finish on the last one there. I think it would be great to have working groups like Jeffco has done. The stakeholders are invested in it because it behooves them and their organizations. So it seems like a great model. One thing I think that the city, being a convener is really important. I think getting information out is something else that the city can do. I was really surprised when I went over to the library and they were telling me all the places where we could get information to our seniors, whether it's with them coming in or some of the social media stuff, or, I can't even think of all of them, but there's so many different ways that the city already has information going out. If we could get senior information out, that would be great.
So as the baby boomers are getting older, now the baby boomers for the most part are computer literate. So is that being taken in as far as how to outreach to these folks? Because I would think that many of the older folks right now are not comfortable with the computers. So
Right.
has that been looked at?
It is, well, with the library and them getting their information out, they've got a certain percentage. It's not big, but they've got Facebook and they've got other, I can't list them, but they do have some participating in that. I would definitely want to use it for those who are interested. And so to go up to the third item there, the gentleman from Wheatridge and I, we were talking and we thought, in line with bringing together all your providers in your community, you can save so much time by bringing together cities who are working on the same subject and sharing ideas and not reinvent the wheel on ideas on getting more efficient in our communities. So my suggestion would be a possible timeline for doing this work for the fourth quarter of this year, or by the end of the year, to convene our service providers, our resource providers in the community, and just have a big meeting and talk. For the first part of next year, then, to bring together several of the cities and the communities that are working on this in the metro area, to talk to them, administer our staff assessment, and then bring our immediate community group back together and see if we've done some things, if we can do more sharing, and what our successes are. And then the second quarter of 2014 to do the actual senior assessment. And it seems intuitive to do that first, and I would like to do that first, but it turns out if we wait till about mid-year that Dr. Cog will probably get us a good deal for having several cities doing this at one time, so we could save money. And it's not necessary to do it first, so. That's it.
So probably should have opened a little bit with some context here. I apologize. So Kay, as you know, I've been doing the GOII and the Northeast stuff, and when she and I have been talking, I don't know how long we've been working on this senior stuff, 6 months, longer.
Yeah, maybe not that long.
Not a lot. But so we were really looking at the council direction about how GOII could become more self-sustaining, self-sufficient, and what other areas of the community did we think needed attention that we hadn't been paying attention to. And so we agreed that it really was the seniors, not that we are in that business again, but that the success of GOII around convening was something that we could play that same role, and hopefully with that same level of success, but in the service delivery for senior needs. And so that was the task that she undertook over the last 4 to 6 months, however long it's been, with an anticipation that those phone calls and that demand for service or questions for where do I find the service is only going to be growing, and to see if we can get ahead of that curve, get the information, figure out, to Jerry's point, how do we get the information out in the best fashion possible? How do we have these guys, those 50 entities, get together in a room and understand, oh, this is what you do, this is what you do, how do we jointly, we have similar customer base, et cetera. So we're really using that GLI model and the North model on this for the seniors. So that's what this was intended to do, and let you know that this is what we're going to be doing for 2014 around this issue. And Kay will be leading that charge.
Great. Great plan. Thanks, Kay.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay. Bruce, Highline Canal presentation.
Got to set up the computer. Just a moment.
Sorry, I couldn't have both at the same time.
To the west.
And I'm making it up.
This to the west? So this is B.
Just sit there, it's easy.
No, go
Other way. You just hit forward and back. So, and then this thing is the point right there. If you need to go one way, you sit
Staff is always.
It's equal, it's handed out to a kid, right?
If you want.
So
Pardon?
You want that extra cookie?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure.
There
Yeah,
you go.
because I didn't have one at all. Oh, but I better take this off or they'll hear me chewing it.
Or temporary volumes also,
Or what?
There you go.
old type things.
I had,
There you are.
or we're average.
Well, he said what the problem is that you can't see the kids.
Yeah.
So if you've got cars, up on the walk, then, and you've got a car coming here, you don't see until you get almost past that car, or get out. So we red zone it,
That will go away.
that car then would have to park back here, so this driver
I just
has a
had a
better chance of seeing.
Okay.
So,
And people are gonna creep up on it too.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying, if there's a volume, temporary volumes, you know, at different stations. That's great.
And I don't, he said it was weird. I asked him, I said, I don't see that as a heavy parking street. There's not a bunch of businesses or business parking. Everybody that lives over there is
Yeah, businesses are over here.
Okay, yeah, they're not.
I'm ready.
He indicated.
We're ready.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, well, for the next 3 hours, we're going to talk about the Highline Canal. No, we're not. I'm really excited to be able to present some information to the council to bring them up to date about what the Highline Canal Working Group has been doing over the last year and a half, and it would be hard to talk about all the issues that the working group has had to deal with, but I think by presenting to you a couple issues that are significant to the working group, and then talk to you about 4 opportunities that are available to us as a city, I think we can really cover a little bit of understanding what the Canal Working Group is doing, and we can leave here maybe with some agreement to move ahead with a couple, 3 or 4 projects that are well within our grasp to do. I did have a handout, about 5 pages, that went out and apparently did get on the web, available on the web also. And I want to refer to that just for a moment to get us oriented to what's going on. There's a great statement in this first paragraph, and it really sums it up. More than 120 years ago, the Highline Canal was constructed to deliver irrigation and water. Since then, the corridor has evolved into a different resource, the Highline Canal Trail. Quietly tucked away in one of America's greatest metropolitan areas, the trail has become an inspiring recreation destination. I love that talk. But that really does highlight what the conflict and the challenge of dealing with the Highline Canal is. It was never designed to be a recreational amenity. It was designed to be a water transporter. And only recently has the focus shifted to where the trail and the vegetation along it is becoming the focal point, and the ability of the canal to transport as a major water transporter has diminished quite a lot. The word is, and the understanding of the working group is, it's Denver Water Board's to do with as they choose. Their primary focus will continue to be to have it as a water transporter and to do those things. But they have a great willingness, and I mean that very much so, a great willingness to move ahead and find ways to share that as a recreational asset. As time has passed and moved forward, it's becoming harder to make good on the opportunities there because the trail does intersect with many very busy areas. And if we really want to make this an amenity that's safe and accessible, and we want to look at it as a 77-mile-long linear park, we do have to address the safety issues that the streets that intersect it create. I'm going to talk a little bit about that as being one of the Highline Canal Working Group's main challenges. And the second part is those trees are 100 years old in some cases. The cottonwoods are going to go. They're going to go based on old age, but it's being accelerated by the lack of water in the canal. So a very great challenge is how do we keep the park-like setting with vegetation? About a year ago, representatives of the working group came through with a contractor who had taken literally every foot of the canal from the time it leaves Waterton Canyon to the time it leaves a little bit north of here, but it included the area that is Littleton, and they looked at all the vegetation, and they also had a historical record from previous years of what that vegetation is, and it's given them an opportunity to get a projection of, if nothing happens, this is what we're looking at. And what we've, in summary, found that we're looking at is the overhead higher canopy going away, and unless something very specific is done, there's no way to replace it. I just tell you that there is a project in Cherry Hills today that they're working on as just a little bit of a model, and that is to find a way to irrigate along the canal in a way that would make sense, to be able to put in various kinds of vegetation that would eventually duplicate the high canopy and what's along the bottom. Probably would not be cottonwoods, but it could be something. But that's a Cherry Hills initiative. The other thing to talk about is the purpose and the vision, and that is in the handout. The Highline Canal Working Group is collaborative. It's to seek funding, and it's to try to improve and implement projects along the canal. So that's basically the direction that we're going to move in. I want to direct you to page 3 of the handout.
And just
Go ahead.
Before that, Bruce, isn't a piece of the Highline Canal also out in Arapahoe, and hasn't Denver Water kind of abandoned even irrigating some sections of it too as well?
Yes. Well, what we have in Littleton is a much nicer look of the canal than what is north of here going into Arapahoe and on up into Aurora and through a little part of Denver. The reason is that they have lost their canopy, and they've lost a lot of it, and it hasn't been done. It's just not there. If you look at page 3, it'll list the people that are on the Highline Canal Working Group, and the reason I point you to that is this is one of those collaborative efforts that involves everybody along the 77-mile length. So as Phil was kind of alluding to, the issues for Littleton may not be the issues for Aurora or the issues for Denver. So we recognize that as a group, but we're giving opportunities for local entities to move in ways that meet the local entities' needs, and we're trying as an overall entity to do the right things for everybody involved. I want to then take you to page 4 because I'm going to talk about that in the PowerPoint here in a minute. At the bottom of page 4 and on into page 5, it talks about 4 tracks for funding. And I just point that out to you that we know, because it's very similar to the Platte River Working Group, we have opportunities with the open space tax, we have opportunities with GOCO, we have things that we could do in conjunction with other entities, and it's very, very similar. But those 4 tracks, I'm going to talk to you about track 4, which is going to be the opportunity that we have here in Littleton to perhaps do some things. But first I want to take you down on the PowerPoint 2 kind of strategic ideas that the working group is working on. Again, this is just pointing out the length of this thing. It is a very long canal, and we're trying to turn it into a linear park. And one really interesting note there is that it goes 66 miles, but only drops 2 feet per mile. That's an incredibly flat piece of water transporter. That's one of the reasons why Denver is choosing really to get rid of it. Most of the users down the canal have found other sources. Denver Water's giving them another way to get their water, and gradually that's what's allowed them to be able to stop the water transportation part of it. Just some facts there. Again, the working group's goals, it's really 2 issues. The City of Littleton wants to be able to fund and initiate some projects within Littleton, and that's what I want to talk about. But the other goal is the group as a whole is going to work with a consultant to work on safety improvements and to try to find ways to repurpose the Highline Canal. And that's going to be a long-term, at least 6 months, going out to maybe a year and a half before we really get serious. And that's going to involve a GOCO grant. So there's two aspects to this.
Before you leave that one, Bruce, is on the safety, because at least within Littleton, the Highline Canal crosses Broadway 3 times.
I am going to show you a picture that's going to that's the one that I think concerns us the most, and there has been studied. So I'll be able to bring you to that in the PowerPoint here. So the The other one, the big strategic plan, is to repurpose the canal for stormwater treatment. And this is being done in conjunction with the Urban Drainage and Flood Control District. It is a major rethink out of the box. You know, as I've said several times, this was a water transporter for irrigation purposes owned by Denver. It was never meant to be a stormwater or drainage or flood control vehicle. But Denver is willing to consider an alternative. And the magic word that we're talking about is creating rain gardens. And what we would do with the canal is the canal would be one major rain garden, really. It's the concept is, without some attention to it, rainwater just drains away. With attention to it, rainwater could be gathered for some period of time, used to a purpose, and then redirected on down through the drainage. The state of Colorado engineer has said 3 days. That's kind of their guideline. So here's just a small idea of a rain garden. This was a place where there was always water gathering. They found a way to redirect it and then turn it into an actual little growing area, and it doesn't violate any of the legal or scientific based on the
Where is
engineer.
that?
That's, I think, in Denver, but I don't know. It says Denver. I'm not sure of the location. There is one along the Mary Carter Greenway. And this was news to me, and I haven't actually gone out and tried to look at it. It's right behind the Carson Nature Center. And it was designed as a rain garden. So we've done it here, and what it does is it traps drain water, redirects it somewhat, gets it into an area that it can be utilized perhaps to create a wetland, and then it goes on its way. So it's never really kept from its legal purpose.
Is that Denver Water's project with all the black tubes down there right now, moving water?
I do not know.
Along Santa Fe?
Along the trail down there.
Mary Carter, that's the sewer relining project. The sewer treatment plant relining the pipe.
Bruce, so since water can drain into these things too, not just come down, so this potentially also could help clean the water a bit before it gets into the river or wherever, right?
Yes, correct. And that is part of the study. $150,000 is being used in this study, and they've taken an area out in Aurora, which is the area in orange there. Use my dandy little pointer there. This area right here is Highline Canal, and what they found was that the drainage actually mirrors what the Highline Canal does. So this is a perfect place to do some scientific study, with the idea being this is the drainage area, and it would go through culverts and storm drainage naturally. They can redirect it into the Highline Canal. It gets to where it goes to. It's not in there more than 3 days, and it's treated by movement through the canal. And one of the things that the engineer pointed out is they did a study about, well, gee, don't you get a lot of muck down at the bottom of the canal as you begin to put stormwater in there, and wouldn't this be an unknown? And they've actually studied it and found that it would be quite a number of years before it would build up to any level where it needed to be cleaned out. So it's very feasible, it appears. So this is the big strategic long-term thought that we have going with the working group, and it is really thinking out of the box. How this could affect us in Littleton, it really depends on the terrain, the way it drains. You know, there's a lot of issues, but first you got to figure out if it's feasible. The other, moving on to safety improvements, which is a major agenda for the working group, because we know there's some places, not just the one at Broadway and the canal, but Orchard and the canal is another great example of a dangerous spot. There's a couple of very bad spots out in Aurora around Sable where they're going to put in light rail station. And there's the canal, and there's a light rail station, and there's a road, and it's it's at grade, and it's 4 lanes. And, what do you do? Because we're trying to make this thing safe, 77 miles. So they took a look. The feasibility study decided to look at a few crossings. These were ones that they looked at. You see on that chart, it goes all the way up to number 16 or number 19. But then they zeroed it down and said, let's just take a look at 3. And one of the ones that they looked at was our Broadway. So When you're talking about how do you make it safer, this is just, you know, when they're in their study, what do? You go either under it. This is down by County Line, if you're familiar with the underpass there. You can go under it, and that's either a 10 by 10 or 12 by 12 type concrete deal. You can go over it. This looks like the bridge to nowhere out in Jefferson County. That may be what they planned it from. But the idea is you just take the pedestrian traffic over it. Or you find a way to engineer it at the same level that it is at. And these are called at-grade improvements, and there's different ways you can do it. You can emphasize the crosswalk. You can channel the traffic differently. You could have an island in the middle for like a safe place for somebody to get halfway across and then go the other half. You could put pedestrian crossing lights, which we chose to do down on Mineral, and that's a very viable solution. And when you look at our areas, these are the things that we're looking at. These are the ones in Littleton. And just to refresh your memory, if you're going north on the canal, you're going to come out at Broadway and Ridge Road, and you're going to go back in around Highline Meadows Apartments for 3/4 of a mile, come back out about 100 yards south of Broadway by Arapahoe Road there. You're going to cross across the street. So you should really go up to Arapahoe Road, but then you have to come back down again, and then you're going to have to get on the canal to go along, paralleling Broadway back up to Cayley. So that's the area that we're concerned with. And so some ideas, you could take the at-grade improvements for Broadway, there'd be something like this conceptually. Conceptually, you could make this space right here a culvert, just like down on County Line, and you could create a culvert underneath, but the problems are truly significant. Drainage, ice, tearing up a road that really doesn't, nobody'd be happy tearing up Broadway. So, but they studied it. And again, the same idea that you could, I'm not sure which is which, but they had the idea of an overpass also, but the problem here is the overhead electric lines need to be moved. There's all kinds of utility issues. So here's the bottom line, and this is going to be a shocker. Alternative one, which would be just do at-grade crossing, they guesstimate, well, you know what, you could probably do it all for about $500,000, but they said $300,000, but it may go up to $500,000. If you were to do the underpass idea, it could be about $4 million. And if you did the pedestrian bridge, it could be about $4 million. So I guess the next slide isn't going to surprise anybody. The recommendation was more study, because there's no money. That kind of money in the things that we're talking about really, truly would have to be exceptional.
Could you have you guys talked about doing the at-grade and sooner, and then as more study, because more study, if it does involve another option, it may take years to even make that option happen. It would be an immediate fix.
It'll be one of the 4 that I'm going to propose to you in a moment. Mm-hmm. But to answer your question, the feeling is, well, what about that 3/4 of a mile over there behind Highline? How important is that? Somebody could use all the signals and things that exist today if they chose to go over there. But what if we really improved the sidewalk that goes from Ridge Road on up to Monty Nuss Studios and went by an open space park, which is the park along there. I call it Sailboat Park or Boat Park.
Sailboat.
That park, you could actually create a very nice pedestrian way in some of that open space terrain right alongside the existing sidewalk. And we're going to suggest that here in a bit. And just kind of let the other one go, and say it's not that significant. Not for $4 million.
Well, not for the trail part. It would be hard to reproduce the canal component.
Yeah, it's
because of the grade differences.
Yeah.
So, from a trail perspective, you could do that from
just for a trail perspective. If we could keep that area, if it's going to be irrigated or improved or marked. Signage is another committee that we have similar to on the plat. If it's going to be signaged or whatever it's going to be, it would be included. But let's come up with a safe alternative. So I'll talk about that one in just a second. So those were the two strategic looks of what we're trying to do. Meanwhile, the working group said, we can't sit and wait. You know, we have to move ahead and show some movement. We really want to get interest in the canal. We want the community to know that this is what we're doing. We feel like, you know, there's a synergy to movement. There's not going to be that if we just kind of keep waiting. And so, and all along there's been discussion of projects. There have been a lot of projects mentioned. As I said, 77 miles, a lot of communities. So the facilitator and the leaders in the group, which are the actual working group members, said let's come up with a simplified list of things that each individual community could do, and let's try to get them moving, get them rolling. Let's get something going. So that's what I'm coming to you with now are the 4 projects that seem to have survived for the last year and a half and are within the ability on that track 4 for us to fund. And the idea would be, once we've identified exact costs, and a lot of this is engineering and that kind of issue, but we've identified an exact cost. We already have open space money that could be potentially our part of the match. The working group itself is the authority to approve additional funding through the open space funds. So if the working group says, yes, it's an acceptable project, it goes to Shannon Carter and the OSTAB group, which is the Open Space Trails Advisory Board for Arapahoe County, to deal with that open space money. And if we put a reasonable share in there, such as we'll use our open space for, I'm just making a recommendation for discussion. If we put 50% in and we ask for out of their open space bundle over there, another 50%, we could perhaps keep moving on these. Now, a confusion is that's not the grant process. That's different than the Arapahoe County grant process. And a lot of times Dave in South Suburban, Dave Lorenz talks about going for grants. This is not going for a grant. This is going for track 4 of those 4 funding systems. So just to move along, again, track 4, there's no package really. It's just going to be the proponent seeks the project endorsement from the working group, and the proponent seeks all funding, and that by that, if we were to go to GOCO, we would go to GOCO, but we're not proposing that, I don't think. We just go to the county by itself. So that's track 4. First one. At South Alati and the canal, we could improve that trail connection by installing a switchback access to the Highline Canal. The estimated cost is $75,000. South Suburban Parks will administer the improvements if Littleton provides the funding. Now, when I say those things, you know that Dave and his staff, City of Littleton, Charlie, myself, we've all looked at this, and you know, this is just a proposal. This is not like etched in concrete. But this would be the way the group believes that it could be done. I want to tell you that there's also, aside from these 4 topics that I'm going to talk about, there's a movement that Dave Lorenz in South Suburban Parks is working with called Let's Just Move Ahead and Enhance the Trail Experience, that there are things that they can do beyond these that will enhance the trail improvements or experience along South Suburban Park. So there's kind of two agendas going.
Is this where there's the steps and kind of the
Yes.
the mud path?
Yes.
That's there. Is that what you're talking about?
What you have is
So
Alati
from
Street.
South Alati up to the
Absolutely.
trail. Okay.
Alati dead ends into the base of the canal. You have to go up the height of the canal to get to there are steps there to get to and cross over or get up to the top there. It has no, if you talk about ADA, there's no ADA considerations there. It just looks like a dead end at the canal. And there could be something done.
That's where I ride my bike down.
Yeah.
To go to Atlantic.
It is also a vehicle access for the folks that go up and down the canal, including police and fire, but it's not a real good spot.
Well, that would be the part which is I was going to ask the next part, because that's where some of the South Suburban folks that are doing some tree irrigation came through. It's also where service trucks that are trimming trees and that along the canal and the power lines that are there accesses that. So this is an additional access, so it almost takes the place of the steps?
Yeah, I think, my idea was the steps would be improved somehow to create an access up there that was a little better than those steps, and at the end of, that it looked like a real trailhead of some kind. And I think each of these, I think you need to involve the neighbors, and, you know,
Yeah.
there's a real lot of discussion that needs to be.
That South Aladdin
But
neighborhood group is pretty
Yeah.
intense.
But it is definitely mud right there now. So there's one. At Ridge Road, this is the Ridge Road Bridge replacement, South Suburban Parks in Littleton. They want to raise the trail approaches to the bridge and replace the bridge, and the estimated cost is $200,000. Now, this is, let's say, 300 yards in from Broadway. I'm
It crosses
guessing.
into the neighborhood.
It crosses into the neighborhood. It's a intersection, pedestrian intersection, where it goes right alongside Ridge Road, right by either Bannock or Apache. I'm not sure which that is right there. It's the stop sign, the three-way stop sign. It has become a major access point to the canal, either from the bridge or from the families that live just south there.
Come over and cut down that bank.
Yes, they do. Yep. So something can be improved around there, but the cost of replacing the bridge was the big piece, and this was one suggestion.
Because there's a big slope up to get on the bridge. I mean,
Yes.
that's what they're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, this is the one that we just talked about, that Debbie was talking about. If we just widen that sidewalk to allow for safer crossings, you can get from Ridge Road. Of course, the challenge is getting along past the gas station in that area and getting past the restaurant in that area. But still, we have a park there that at least for part of that, we can improve the sidewalk into the park slightly. And Charlie feels like this is a solution that would work, and the signage could suggest that people take that route instead. There's no cost. I don't have a cost up here. It's really just kind of, you know, do we want to give it a try?
Well, you have it's kind of tough at Monte Nos in the way that that is kind of opposite Arapahoe already. It's kind of problematic because then the property drops off on the back, on the west side.
Yeah, and
And then you have the memory care center, and I actually haven't gone through that, but I think that's tight there, so.
it is. It's not a good spot. I mean, this is not going to be ideal, but it could be perhaps safer than trying to cross and come back again to get up to that next stretch.
The cross that goes across at Ridge isn't that bad, although the light sometimes is not ideal for a family that's crossing there.
You talking about that little loop on the other side of Broadway?
But it's the cross that comes back that is really somewhere nowhere.
It hits in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
There's an intersection 100 yards further north if you're going to do it safely. But so this is a real problem.
So Bruce, you said this doesn't cost anything, but let's have truth, and, I mean, there's something, but it's not much to widen a sidewalk. I mean, that's why you're saying it's not really a big cost.
Yeah, this is one that just, you know,
But the city would pay for it, would they? Yeah.
yeah, so,
I mean, something else wouldn't get done. That, I mean, but there is money.
okay, the last one, I can't tell you too much about it because it's just an idea, but the Olson Open Space, South Suburban Parks is willing to work with us on that. There needs to be a bridge across the High Line there. These bridges cost around $200,000. It's not going to be allowed to be used for the Arapahoe County open space money because it's not in Arapahoe County. It's in Douglas County, so we can't really leverage that. But this is one that needs to be on our radar screen, even though the funding may not be the ideal situation. And Charlie's not here, but I know he's looked at it, and the idea is that open space needs to get access to the canal. That's basically it. And I can't tell you much more than that on that one. It is south of County Line Road. It's in the vicinity of Windcrest. And it butts up against the Highline Canal as it loops around in there. So again, this is just, I just want the council to know that this is being looked at as one of them. I really didn't have much more to add other than what I was hoping to leave today with was enthusiasm for these ideas. We need some money to act on them individually and then make them happen. And it's an understanding that we actually can do this through the working group. All I need to be able to do as one of the working group folks is be able to say to the working group, this has received the blessing of the City of Littleton Council and are something that we want to move ahead with the funding for.
And so I would just add that the 2013 appropriation is already in there. So to just clarify Bruce's request, as long as the council is comfortable with these projects, and again, it'd be 50%. So it's 237.5, if I do my math right, going to Arapahoe County for the match on that. And you can go back. What's that?
For which one?
For all four.
Yeah. There's three that there are dollars requested for, and so half of that would be the 237.5, which is already appropriated. So if you guys give us the green light, then Bruce can tell them now whether the projects actually occur in 13 versus 14. That's a separate issue, but it'll give us the go ahead to move forward.
And I can tell you confidently that Dave Lorenz has been part of the discussion of these, and we know there's always issues about sharing the South Suburban for the ongoing costs and all that. And these are bridges to cross, but the bridge to cross now is whether we want to try to proceed with the improvements.
Quick, couple questions, Bruce. So the $300K to $4 million, that's just for Highline Canal in Littleton, like say, from Windcrest or there to Broadway and Orchard Circle.
Yeah, just
Littleton, right?
Yeah, we're saying these are very estimated cost, right? 200,000 down in Olson, probably out of existing funds, no additional funds for a sidewalk improvement, basically.
So the $3K to $4 million, so it's just located in Littleton, right?
Right.
That's just okay. So then the estimated, do we know the estimated cost for maintenance then?
Well, I think that's where Bruce was just saying as part of the agreement that South Suburban takes that over.
Maintenance part
The
of it.
maintenance part of it.
Other than our taxes, there's no Littleton direct
Correct.
contribution, we hope. Okay, cool.
In the past, Bruce, so my question will be particularly with the Olson Bridge, because in the past, Denver Water has owned the bridges in that and allowed for that access. So this actually goes against what has previously happened with that. I think overall it's a great use for the open space money and elements that do need attention that can use that. Certainly the crossing at Broadway is something I've heard a few things about. The bridge crossing into the neighborhood, they're just on the south side of Ridge is also something that's been part of the neighborhood conversation. So every one of those is there. The only one with the Olson Bridge being a little bit different. What happens with the maintenance of the bridge after its installation? Say we're 40 years down the road.
We would own, it would be the same as any other, think of it as any other park. We probably own the park, and the South Suburban's probably been contracted to provide the maintenance and operation costs, is been the model. And that's the presumption, and you're right. Part of this is Denver Water is willing to give up some of these things they've held so close to the vest, but they're not willing at this point to give up the ability to transport water.
I'm good.
Make sure I understand, is the Broadway grade crossing is not really one of the projects you're asking about, is it?
No. No, really all we're doing with Broadway is we're going to try to clean up the intersections that might direct pedestrian traffic to the west side of Broadway and say, here's a safe pedestrian route. You know, I don't know how we do that with signage, but create the impression that this is a safe pedestrian route, and the everyday constant users will find pretty quickly that that seems to work better, unless they really want to go the 3/4 of a mile around Highline Meadows.
Yeah, no, that part makes a lot of sense. The Alatty piece, I think, is fine. I agree that that's a nasty location, and there's better things with that. What exactly is wrong with the bridge or ridge? I mean, I've been through there. I've seen the bridge there. It's not new, but it looked like it was in pretty good shape.
Charlie, as that's been discussed, it's just not a safe amenity.
In what respect?
I think my understanding of it is the bridge needs to be replaced. It needs to be a wider expanse to get from this point to this point without creating, you step off the bridge and then go back up.
I'll step in on this.
Go ahead.
Because I've done that bridge during bad situations.
Before you do that, this is the bridge that goes from the canal into the neighborhood.
Goes over the canal from the trail, which the trail's on the north side of the canal.
Yeah, over by the old
and
Joanne
south side of the bridge.
Fabrics.
Right.
Yes, okay.
Okay. And what happens is there's not steps on the bridge. There's a ramp. Particularly on the north side of the ramp is where it's worse, but it's pretty steep ramp on both sides. And what happens is because of the north side of the bridge and the north ramp, for 3 months a year, it's very icy.
Oh, I see.
And it's, so if you want to know someone that's fallen on that, thinking I'm pretty sure-footed and was wearing, not smooth shoes, it's... Is that one of your questions? but that's the particular piece, and it's also not. I mean, a number of the bridges all along the canal, the ones that are built over, are not particularly ADA friendly.
No, I guess that's the question.
But this one ends up a little worse than others.
Okay, but so you'd say this one is worse than, for example, a similar bridge by Heritage?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And then I guess
and personal experience with both of them.
Okay.
And I've had several inputs from people who live in that area who are somewhat challenged walking.
Okay.
But they like to get across that. So not just Phil with his dexterity, but other folks.
And I guess the last question I have is the Olson Bridge, so there is or is not one there now?
Truly, my belief was there wasn't one there.
I didn't think there was either. But to me, that's I'm not sure who's using that open space in a general sense. I guess my sense, maybe without having really thought about it extensively beyond what we're talking about here. I remember, Phil, you and I had talked about that one bridge. If we've got 200K in open space, I know we also had some questions about people in Oak Brook where they had a bridge behind Littleton Hospital. I'm not so...
It's not a Highline project.
No, I understand that, but I mean, if we're going to pony up 200K, I might be more inclined to want to put it in that neighborhood where there's likely to be more public utilization of it than Olson, which is sort of, we bought it to make sure it would stay open, but I'm not sure it's...
Yeah, I'm not sure. The bridge is from the property.
To the canal, to the trail.
But who's using it?
Well, it's just the idea that we would have eventually some apartments down there. We'll have perhaps more users. I'm only throwing it out as one that's identified that we could use money for to do. I think it's problematic in some ways.
Through the working group.
And through the working group, they would like to see eventually something improved there.
I'm kind of with Bruce. I think while there may be some applicable need for that at some point, I don't see it as a urgent enough need as these others are, because people are using the High Line, but they're not using Olson. I think they're still living on Olson. They're still renting that house over there.
Yeah, and it's 100% our cost. That's
Right.
That's a little problematic.
Because of the Douglas County thing?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
The other two, yeah, sure. I definitely think those are good ideas. I'm probably a little less enthusiastic about this.
Ditto.
Truthfully, I am too. But, you know, the working group wanted,
Sure.
that was one that made it through.
I think it could stay on your list of possible projects, but not a high priority for.
I think that's what I'd be asking for, really. I mean, just to go back to the working group and say sometime, someday, when appropriate.
So then, getting back to the cottonwood trees, that really do line the whole canal, in the city of Littleton at least. They require tremendous amounts of water, and I don't think they're really native to that area. It's just they're there because of the canal. So what's the maintenance plan to keep them going?
Here's the idea, and they're testing it in Cherry Hills, so that'll be the first opportunity to see whether this kind of irrigation works. They want to come up with an irrigation program where it is installed in the ground. It's leak-type irrigation. It is not spray-type irrigation. So it requires piping down the entire length of the canal. You have to have an access point to put the water into the pipe, and the pipe can handle it for some number of miles, actually. So, you know, it's not like you have to have one every mile. I've heard maybe 5 miles you could actually create the pressure to do that. You will plant in 3 cycles. A tree that you plant, you have to water for about 5 years in order to get it to really, before you can leave it alone and expect it to live in this high plains dry environment. So you pick trees that would grow. It's not going to be a cottonwood. It's going to be a tree that has a canopy. It grows, but it's going to have to be watered for 5 years. You can then unplug that tree from the irrigation and go to another tree for 5 years, and you could look at something, either another high canopy, or you could go to a medium canopy or smaller tree, not a cottonwood, or you can try to do the brush type things, because part of the issues is the wildlife along there. You know, putting a tree up there may be nice to look at, but you have to support the wildlife on the ground and that kind of thing for it to be the park that they're anticipating. So perhaps three cycles of plantings, 5 years of watering through an irrigated system underground, leak type, drip type, and hooked in on a periodic basis into a water source.
So the cottonwoods, essentially, it sounds like the plant will die.
I think that's the plan.
Like Kittredge Park, where they're struggling over there. So the idea then would that they would put in some semi-arid type trees.
Right.
It sounds like.
Well, it sounds like from the pictures that the gentleman did who showed it, and then he showed how they could improve it if the cottonwoods went away. Still a canopy. Everybody's agreeing there's a canopy requirement there to make it look right, but it takes 5 years for a wild tree.
And then also you had mentioned develop some rain gardens, or is any along the line? Does any of this have the rain garden thing?
No, but it's the idea is if they can find any place along the canal where it can trap drain water, and they can meet the expectations of the state engineer that we don't control it for more than 3 days and it continues on down through its drainage, it could work. What I didn't put up was the complications. There's rubbish and all kinds of things that get in that water. When it goes in there, it's got to be trapped, it's got to be cleaned out. There has to be a system to do that. The access in and the access out have to follow drainage. There's just a whole lot of engineering. So,
And then my last question then, and then it's all yours, Peg. So then Lee Gulch, will that be affected in a positive way?
well, that's a concern. If the idea was, because the Lee Gulch and the canal follow the same drainage pattern to some extent, and they use some of the same areas. So if you directed water into the canal, what do you do to Lee Gulch? And that may not be something we're interested in doing, because Lee Gulch needs water flow to be effective as a trail drainage in our city. So we may have a problem because of what we have with the interconnecting of those two back in the Flumes area there.
That whole drainage piece, there's a limit to how much higher ground we have than the canal within the city. And most of that drains into the gulch. And so there will be conflict. In fact, they actually cross. With one coming in aqueduct or whatever they call it.
Flume.
A flume above that. So, that would be an interesting.
I'm not sure that the rain catchment system will work in Littleton. It might work down more around Mineral and down in that area, some maybe, perhaps, but then we're looking, again, the canal working group is looking at 77 miles, so.
Thank you.
So in the trees, isn't the idea to have quite a variety so that if any diseases hit, they all don't leave together?
Absolutely it is, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's part of that study that was done a year and a half ago. They made suggestions about what types of vegetation could be placed in there that would not share the same risks and would not share the same water issues, and, it's planned out that way. There's a real thought process.
So Bruce, it sounds like the general consensus is all but the Olson. What's next steps then?
Well, Dave Lorenz and his crew, meeting with the city manager and whatever staff person he's going to recommend, to come up with some specifics, because there has to be an engineering plan. We can't submit it, I don't believe, to OSTAP without some specifics.
And then we'll have a better idea of the cost share.
Yes.
Because the prices that you're giving us, are those price share costs?
That's total cost.
Okay, so that would, our out-of-pocket would be less.
It would be some percentage of it, and we'd have to convince OSTAP that the other percentages.
Are you looking at any contribution from South Suburban on any of this?
Well, that's if they're going to take over the operations and maintenance of it, that's part of that discussion. We put it in, they'll take care of it after we do it. They don't really have money unless they go to one of those 2 grant cycles particularly, and that's what the hang-up always keeps becoming, that keeps us from putting this off, because Dave Lorenz has only the goodwill of the city, because we're the jurisdiction that gets it, or the grant cycle that he can apply to twice a year through OSTAP. And I'm not sure this is the grants that he would really want to. I think he would want to do something much grander, quite honestly. And I think that's what they're talking about when they say enhance the trail experience. I think he wants to do something South Suburban to South Suburban, their whole, I don't know how many miles it is, it's at least 15. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Yet to be determined. I don't have a solid answer for
Pull
you.
the one project out, if it's a 50-50 split, you're looking at about $140,000.
Okay. You got what you need?
Yeah, fine, yeah.
Great.
I just tell you that this is a real exciting group to be on. It's really thinking ahead, but the challenges of trying to deal with 77 miles that you don't control is quite something. So thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Do you guys want to take a 5-minute break?
You good?
Okay. 5-minute break. We'll be back at 7:30.
Questions for me?
Well, yeah.
what do you want to do with that? With the kids?
He'd say that when you go back.
The house has filled in. So it's.
I think except for me.
Like what was presented.
They have their community profile. This is expanding.
Yeah, yeah.
iPad Air.
Who's got an air? Did you get an air?
You know, the nice thing about a bridge and ridge is,
Okay, we're going to get started again.
I have, depending on my whim at the moment.
All right, we're going to get started. We've got a presentation from Mike.
Thank you. You have this in your packets as well. The PowerPoint that I've got for you tonight is a little different, follows a little different of a system. So it's not quite the same, but it will more or less follow along with the packet materials. Part of the reason why this was put together is just to give you all an understanding of what's going on in the city and how we compare to a number of communities in the metro area. This is all data from sources, primarily census data, some from the Department of Local Affairs demography section, and some from paid data sources like Esri, where the city has a subscription to their data service. So. And this is really just to give you a background. We'll cover general demographics, some housing information, specific to the city for departments, and just I think I have about 70 graphs here. So it's a real exciting night. I'm glad all the other speakers were so succinct, so I can take till 10, 11 o'clock tonight to run through all these. Okay. I'll go for it.
Here for you, Jared.
I like this attitude.
Well, then I'll get moving. Kay already covered this, but the fastest of the three growing sections for population, you'll see are those 55 to 84. And this is just looking at 7 years projection. So you can only imagine moving forward that this will actually increase. For Littleton itself, you'll see our median age at 42, where I have a pointer, 42, where some of the communities around us, Wheat Ridge at 44, Centennial 42 as well. So a lot of the communities around us are aging as well. This is just a quick look at the communities that we actually compared to. You'll notice we have Arvada, Centennial, Englewood, Golden, Littleton, North Glen, Thornton, Wheat Ridge, and then the Denver metro area when data was available. So, wrong way.
In choosing some of those, I mean, there's some that are closer that you didn't include, like Greenwood Village.
Sure. And that was primarily because of the, generally the resident composition, I think is a good way to put it. Littleton, we seem to really match up well with North Glen, Wheat Ridge, Golden to a certain point, and then some of the other communities may be a little bit more landlocked, much like we are in a way. Looking at Thornton, Arvada, which has really, through annexation, has really gotten big, and a few of the other communities, Centennial, which of course expands way out. We didn't include any of these newer communities because they are expanding, especially the northern communities, because they expand so much. Their population is growing so fast through annexation and whatnot. So here's population. As you can see, Thornton, Centennial, and Arvada, large communities that are 2.5 times our size. But like I said, we match up well with North Glen, Wheat Ridge, Inglewood and Golden, which is half our size, but still is comparable. And although they may be a different size, what we did is try to normalize the data through per capita, looking at per capita characteristics. Age distribution, Kay covered a lot of this as well earlier. Here we are at 13%, 55 to 64, and the younger age category, 25 to 34, we match up pretty closely. You'll notice some of these, the younger communities like Inglewood at almost 20% of that 25 to 34 demographic, and then the older communities like Centennial at 15% to 10%. Household income, we have a quarter of our population earning over 100 to 200,000 plus. 50% earning more than 50,000. You'll notice I added in here the federal poverty guidelines for a family of four, about 24,000. We have about a quarter of our population. This is household income. About a quarter of our population living in poverty, and that's something that was one of those surprises for me. Median income for select cities, our median income is 52,000.
And that's the household?
That's household, or that's median income in general. I don't believe it's household. I'd have to go back and look at my chart, but our resident labor force, another interesting fact. Those who live in Littleton and are in the workforce, 17,449. 86% of those leave Littleton for work. Those who live in Littleton and employed in Littleton, about 2,500, which seems really, really low to me, but this is straight out of the census data. And so 92% of the almost 29,000 commute into the city for work.
I thought that was amazing, too.
Yeah, I agree.
No wonder Broadway's so busy.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll notice a lot of our traffic is on those commuter routes or those main thoroughfares. So. Top industries here, 59% of our workforce is in healthcare, education, administration or support services, public administration, and retail. Right behind there, we have about 7% in professional, scientific, and technical services, and 9% information. So,
Reflective, we're home for Littleton Public Schools and Arapahoe
correct.
County and
Yeah.
ACC, and so.
Overall, though, if you look at our pie chart compared to many others, we're much more diverse of an employment area than other communities. And specifically, when you look at places like Inglewood, 30% of their population is, or of their job industry sector is healthcare. So.
Swedish hospital.
Swedish. Craig. Yeah, you look at some of those large hospitals, and yeah, exactly. Whereas most everyone else falls well under the 15% of the total of everything. So, primary jobs, educational attainment. Nope, going the wrong way. Sorry, don't want to make you sick. About 72% of our workers in Littleton have some college or an associate degree. 42%, I should say at least some college or an associate degree. 42% have a bachelor's degree or more. So we're a well-educated community.
Do we have a breakout in terms of age on that?
Breakdown in age?
For the educational attainment?
That I do not recall. I can check the data.
Yeah, like are a lot of
No,
the
I
old,
meant like he has.
that would be a good question, yeah. Right answer.
Because, I mean, a lot of our retirees are very well educated.
Sure. Well, these are individuals. These are folks who are in the workforce now.
Oh, okay.
So this is specific.
Well, yeah,
to-
but some, sure. So,
But I can
so
check
apart
on
from that, I shouldn't say retirees. We've got people who are still working who
Sure.
are either part-time or full-time.
I'll check to see. if
But
there's
you're
a-
right, Peggy, because a lot of the folks in Martin are retiring, or retired, and they're all highly educated folks, or many of them.
But they don't show up out there if they're not working.
Yeah, this is for folks who are working.
But some of them are
Employed.
working,
Or getting ready to drop off.
yeah.
Well, if the question that's related to that, and I guess I'll ask it now, which is is there a way to normalize those that are employed versus those that might be retired, given that Wheat Ridge and Littleton have an older population that might not be? They might be collecting a pension or that. How does that reflect in income? Or to take a look
sure.
at median income, if it's investment returns and
Well,
pensions.
there is a breakout. You can look at, and I don't know how current the data is or if it's available, but they look at dividends and interest payments into a community or into an area. I don't think it gets down into specific, it might be countywide, but I don't think it gets down into municipal level data.
Yeah, it's just that there may be some noise in there that.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure there
Because
definitely is.
when you take a look at the older communities, they tend to be a little bit lower based on the information. And so if you normalize that by workforce participation or such, there might be a different story.
Okay. Fairly current unemployment rate, Littleton actually had the lowest of the communities that we compared against.
And that's just raw, right? I mean,
This is just
like,
straight from the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
yeah, so that's it, of the people that are actually really looking.
Correct.
Right, not the
Not
ones
those
that
who
have
have given
given
up or anything, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think most of these numbers would be higher if you factor that in as
And
well.
the jobs piece is actual workers, whether they live here or not, on the left, bottom left?
Correct,
Yeah.
because it's workers in Littleton.
Thank you.
So the earnings, the interesting correlation here is those that live in Littleton and work in Littleton actually earn less than those who commute in or commute out, which I thought was rather interesting as well.
Well, we got a lot of people coming to certain of the jobs that live in some posh places. I mean, not in the city,
Sure.
so.
Now we're getting into the city budget data. This is retail and motor vehicle sales tax. This is straight from our finance department. The blue line represents actual. The red line is inflation adjusted. When you look at 1997 to 2012, where we are, 2012, inflation adjusted, it looks like we actually have the, when you look at this, our buying power is back here in 1999 to 2000, somewhere in that realm. An interesting point. Retail sales tax collected, how we stack up. This is Littleton here. Something that's interesting to note for Centennial, you can actually see when IKEA opened. They immediately jumped $5 million, and then another went for a full year. They jumped 10. So it's amazing, and by far you can see their jump compared to everyone else. Everyone else is a fairly average.
They also annexed that whole section, forget what center that is with REI and all of that, along with the IKEA
Sure.
build was that annexation.
But that's
What was happening in Arvada and Thornton? Because they.
Can you speak up just a hair?
Oops. Sorry. Get it in.
Oh,
Sorry.
I don't know what was going on in Arvada and Thornton. I just this caught my eye because it was such a big jump. So I quick Googled when IKEA was opened, and it was half of 2011. So, but when looking at per capita, we actually do fairly well. We're the third highest there, right, a little above average. Select city per capita was 480, and we're at 524. So.
Mike, it's interesting. Englewood's got the highest on that list.
Yes.
That's what I did.
Huh?
Yeah.
But, well, does that correlate, though, with the chart you had before that has the highest proportion of younger residents? In other words, they had the highest bar in terms of the youngest number of
True, correct.
residents, and then what we've always sort of said is younger.
People spend more money.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's also interesting
Spend
too
more
is-
money on things that generate sales tax.
Correct.
Well, point being.
What's also interesting too is you'll see later on, Englewood has the highest number of renters. They have 51% of their housing units are rental. which I was astonished by. I didn't anticipate that either. But that comes a little later.
Well, it would have been interesting to see Glendale in there.
Yeah. Well, Glen, that's such an
Five people in
interesting place. They're almost 100% multifamily.
But that renting in Englewood is for houses that are being rented too, right? It's not just
It's not just
yeah.
multifamily.
Yeah, I mean, which
It's
means you've got a
similar
lot of
stuff.
people who moved out and are renting the house.
Correct.
So
Grants for the city, we appear to average around 600,000, somewhere in that realm. Total grants received in 2012 when compared to other communities, we aren't as active in seeking out grants as a number of other communities, and that's something we're working on. Charlie this year had his $1 million month, and we've got a few other grants in the.
And that's money primarily coming from the feds?
It's from a variety of sources. Anything from open space money that was discussed during the Highline discussion, to GOCO, to money from CDOT, which could be additionally from the feds. There's a number of places where this comes from.
Well, and I mean, a portion of that is not the city on its own. It's in conjunction with South Suburban for the Arapahoe County grants.
The message here is we don't go after grants.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Even when you discount it for the joint ones that are done.
You're absolutely
it's even
right.
worse.
And the
To Arapahoe County for open space is essentially it's a yes.
Yes.
And so we're taking the easy dollars, and what we need to do, as you can see, and this is one of those true dashboard performance measurements, is those dollars need to go up relative to what you're seeing. And that's, as you've heard me for several years now, that's been an ongoing focus of ours, is to shift those dollars, and with the total pie piece, reducing the reliance on sales tax to the extent that we get some of these dollars out there for grants.
So like Arapahoe County's getting their grant money from the citizens. That's a question. Versus getting it from the feds.
there's sales. There's a.
Well, and my thought is if it's from the citizens, then it's more likely to be an ongoing thing available. Whereas the feds,
It depends on what the administration focus is. Like during the when they did the what was it called? The ARRA. What's it? The stimulus program. The ARRA funds. The stimulus program. You saw a ton of money dropped into a lot of systems, and then it just went away.
right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So some of the grant money that maybe we're going after, maybe it's more of a.
We're not talking operational dollars.
No,
None of the
by any
grants
means.
are for that, but it's grants for planning projects, it's grants for construction projects, and it's really the gamut. I mean, we go after grants for fire engines and ambulances, and as Mike said, for the open space piece. There are grant opportunities in virtually every aspect here. None of it's operational dollars, it's either planning grants or
project
construction.
money.
but we did get grants. I thought was it a police or fire position for something or
There's
other.
the cops grant, as well as there's a.
So
Still not ongoing.
no. So my friendly question is, how are we is really you. I mean, but how are we putting out a plan to say, look, let's go after these kinds of things and do, and I know this is silly, but I'll say it, let's do one a month, next year. Now, I know writing grants is not that fast,
What we do
but
is we take the council goals and objectives and what was approved for the budget, and that gives us our map of what grants we go after. So we need to have the dollars appropriated for it. And as you know, we've had several things in there where we said, we're going to go after this grant. We may or may not get it. You need to appropriate the full amount. If we don't get it, we come back to you and say, do you still want to spend the money on whatever they have?
yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is, we can say, yeah, we want to go after it, but how exactly does that translate into saying, hey, you, go sit down and write this puppy and bring it, get it submitted
That's what
by...
I guess I'm not understanding. We have staff that write the grants and go after it.
Yeah, well, if we're not...
And opportunities only come up every so often. It really.
Yeah, but what you're seeing historically is a lack of focus on this. And it takes time to shift
Not in
the
the game.
organization. We haven't the historical approach on is grants are a pain because you have to do paperwork, you have to track it, especially with federal grants. And that was not a focus.
We have a grant writer.
We have several people who are focused on grant writing.
Do we have a grant writer?
Sure, yes.
I mean, that's their full-time job.
No,
is-
we do not.
Thank you for the answer.
You're welcome. We have people who write grants.
What department people who have a real job doing something
Yeah,
else?
you might be looking at one right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, that's
so-
what I thought, and I'm not faulting, I just thought we
So-
didn't have
so
this
my-
person.
My point is, this is a true tracking mechanism because, as Mike just pointed out, grants come and go, they dry up, they do this, but we as an organization are now focusing on, and part of what Mike's responsibility is as we're going through the budget process, to really be reaching out to all the departments to understand what those capital equipment needs, et cetera, are, so that he can be thinking about where do we go after those grants, where do we think the dollars may be available, so if you guys say, yes, we want to do it, we're prepared to go after those grant dollars. That is a shift in the thought process to not just say, we'll just pay cash for it because it's open space dollars.
Just a comment, it's not all future things, because I'm going to presume that
Yes.
the Dr. Cog grants and planning for 2014 and 2015 are going to show up. They just haven't yet, and those are coming.
Do we know if the other communities, like Thornton, for instance, Arvada or Centennial, do they have dedicated grant writers?
They might. I mean, there's several communities that do. It's really how you structure, grant writing takes a skill, but the most important thing, I think, is being cognizant of what's out there and understanding what the organization is attempting to accomplish and aligning those desires and needs with what's out there. There's some standard ones that most people know about. Dr. Cog is a standard one. A lot of the state agencies have, DOLA has their standard ones that are running out there. And a lot of us throw our names in the hat there. We haven't even done a great job on that. But it's more the more unique ones that may have greater dollars or being prepared for it, like the Tiger grants that was through CDOT. But there's just there's the multitude of it. And I'm not intending to us to drill down into it, but just know that that is a front that we are now focused on. And we're not going to just shirk the responsibility of saying, hey, there's an opportunity. Let's go after that opportunity.
Well, it's an interesting graph, really.
Yeah, this was one of the ones I wanted you guys to see.
Gene, who's in Thornton.
So, Mike, do you know what Arvada or Thornton, what type, I mean, do you have any idea? Because, those are huge, huge numbers. Are they anything to do with their transportation?
I do not know.
Okay.
This was, the finance collected a lot of this information for me, and we just asked for total numbers, not a breakdown, because we were trying to make it as easy as we could for those responding communities to actually give us.
I think almost everybody gets the, I'm going to say it wrong,
CDBG?
yeah. And you get different levels of it based on,
Population. So those
Yeah.
larger communities do get direct appropriations of CDBG funds.
okay.
Do you guys know what Sears is doing? I mean, their number is 3x ours, and they're smaller than.
No, and to the mayor's point, I mean, you can get a state highway grant, for example, and it'll skew this pretty heavily. But no, we don't. We didn't do analysis of why this is here. We're putting the data out for you guys to see right now. We don't have.
Okay.
This is great information, and I think kudos for recognizing it, and let's get them. Let's get our fair share.
We're going to be at the top.
I have so much more information to share. We're not even halfway.
Okay, let's go.
Speaking now to the centerline miles, the lane miles that we maintain within the city. Centerline miles are specific. It doesn't matter the number of lanes you have. This is straight down the center of
That was
that.
another good graph.
So 161 miles of roads, centerline miles of roads. When you add up all the lanes that we manage, though, 356. So compared to all the other communities that are around our size, we have significantly more roads to maintain.
What is the center line again? Is that just?
Center line is down the center line of the road.
And when you talk about lane miles, if you're.
Doesn't matter the number of lanes. It could be a 6-mile road. It's just one. It counts as 1 mile. Road or the lane miles counts all the lanes in that road.
So for example, we have a certain stretch of Broadway that's
6 lanes, 7 lanes, yeah.
and you multiply it out.
That's why when you, 161, you go all the way to 352. It's not a 2-lane roads.
Well, I'm presuming that when you go to total lane miles, it's 2 lanes is your,
Total lane miles is the number of lanes that you have. So if it's 6 lanes, you're counting all 6 lanes. And for how many miles that is.
That was another good graph.
yeah.
The bottom is the challenge.
Sure, and this is what you see. And granted, this is the average of the select communities, is about, we're looking at lane miles here. So $8,500 is the average spent per lane mile, and we're around 6,900.
Is there any metric that overlays any of this that talks about the average age of the streets that are out there, for example?
No, not really. Because this includes all the city streets. And some of them could be brand new to 100 years old.
Well, and I mean, I guess, I don't know what the nature of those northern suburbs is, how many, whether they've got newer streets, for example, in a place like Thornton, and they don't need as much budget versus, I mean, that's interesting data, but it seems like that's a dimension that would be further, would illustrate
Sure.
that we're at, are we further below than we actually are showing there?
And for the most part, when you look at most of the budget pieces, North Glen and Thornton are generally a little bit lower on most everything. So it kind of goes in line. Most of these communities are about the same age. They're all more or less inner ring suburbs, which is why they were selected, whether or not their size. So this is part of the reason why they were selected, so we can a little bit better compare the infrastructure that's out there. And I will point out too, this was compared by their actual, the budget numbers were based on their street budget, which in some communities, they don't exactly line up, so it may not be a perfect comparison, but it's about the best we could get.
And there's nothing that shows the kind of condition of the streets. I mean,
No, because not everyone understands their condition of their streets. There's no rating system. Not everyone has a pavement management system that can tell you that.
So then we may spend less maybe when I'm proud of the city, so I'm just making this sound good, but maybe when we do maintain them, we maintain them better so
Sure.
that we don't need to keep maintaining them as often. I mean,
That could potentially be. It's one of those things
of course,
we don't know.
I mean, there's another way to spin it too, but, that's one way.
And Charlie is securing a pavement management program so we can better track the actual quality of both the surface condition as well as the structural component of the road. So we'll know a little bit more about that once we go and have that work done, have that pavement management system in place. Street budget per capita, again, and we're at 57, average is about 71. So it's similar to what was just said a little bit ago.
Michael, I went to the CML conference where they had the discussion about protecting your investment in the infrastructure, and a lot of it was about the roads.
Correct.
And I remember Golden said that they went for a bond measure, for
Correct.
instance. So when you see that $93, I'm guessing their bond,
They have additional funds.
yeah, that's where that came from.
And a lot of communities do. There are, up north, like in Loveland and Fort Collins area, they actually have a street utility fee where they charge, they treat the streets as a utility. So I think it's like a quarter, I can't remember what it is exactly, but it's a few bucks on your monthly utility bill that you're actually paying for the streets. But there are other places too that have special funding for their street improvements.
Well, and a few years back, I know this is 11, but a few years back, didn't we have a big push on street pavement throughout the city?
It was pre-me.
But we got the last part of the city paved.
Right. Yeah, but I'm thinking that, I wonder if that is one of the reasons that the numbers for us are lower, And that even could be true for Thornton and Northland, probably.
Yeah. So,
That's interesting, though. That's 2011. That other data you've been showing us, I think most of it is at least 2012.
but
So
it really varies in the data sources. The CDOT data is always 2 years behind. And so I'm taking the CDOT lane miles here well, excuse me, I know, this was DOLA and the city budgets. They weren't through with the 2012, or there wasn't complete information yet when I pulled this information. So there was a reason why I did with 2011. I can't remember.
The reason why it's called a dashboard, too.
Yeah. So now we're on to fire. This is our Littleton Fire Rescue. Total calls. This is only looking at fire versus EMS. So in 2012, when you look at fire and EMS calls, 98% are EMS. When you factor in everything else, 66 are EMS. And so that includes both fire, EMS, alarms, other, which include a variety of things, and then hazmat responses. So interesting that our fire department is an EMS provider primarily. Out of jurisdiction calls, this is something that's not, I don't have a graph for, but out of jurisdiction calls are also increasing pretty significantly.
What did you say, Mike, that interesting that the fire department responds to the EMS?
Well, the fire department, when you look at only the EMS and fire piece of it, they're responding to 179 fires. At the same time, they're responding to 8,500 EMS calls.
And it's the same equipment that goes out, isn't it?
Correct. But then this is their whole suite of all their responses, and so you're looking at everything else.
And that's really happening across the country with everything that they've done to make buildings safer, make products safer, make people smarter, and then that also correlates
to the movement to the emergency services.
Well, and with the aging too, because they're a large call portion of that, which we've learned from some of our studies on fire.
Yeah. So then out of jurisdiction, 7% of calls in 2012 were out of jurisdiction.
Can I mention just a side note for a question at some point in time, which is, someone was mentioning that skilled care facilities, and someone falls, responding to those calls as opposed to the facility dealing with it. Can we just get a little more information on that and how much that is?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Put the question.
asking the question about, so if you look at this, we've got alarms. Well, if we're doing false alarms, there's communities that have charged fees for responding to false alarms. So that's one thing we're looking at. And then Phil's question was a conversation that he and I had about some of the facilities, senior housing facilities. We are their on-site medical response, which means the general community is paying for those. And so one of the things we're looking at and doing some research on is how many facilities in the city have on-site medical provision versus those that are utilizing us as their on-site provider, and what do we want to do about that? Do we want to start charging if they do not, if they're a certain size, for example, and they're utilizing us, and reducing their costs?
You mean like a Brady House?
The number one use in the other category was assist invalid. Just so you know.
That was an excellent question.
So this is LFR,
Correct.
including the partners.
Yes, this is the entire.
Right. So I guess one question would be, we've got 7% of all calls are out of jurisdiction, which in some respects could theoretically be a good thing from a revenue perspective. But I guess it begs the question of how many in-jurisdiction calls were led to people like South Metro or whatever. We don't have that.
I don't have that information now.
can you get any data on breaking out the other? I mean, you've got examples included, but are there larger categories, some of those?
Yes, the fire department maintains an entire spreadsheet of all their calls, and I can provide that to you if you
Because
like.
I think that'd be interesting. Thank you. To break to categorize the other.
The breakout of the other, what are the other responses?
Yeah, so that's a bunch.
Yeah, well, and on the side there, they're listed as the top uses, so going down. So the number one response was assist invalid, number 2, non-injury vehicle accident, 3, public service, 4, assist police and other government, biohazards, shorted electric equipment, lockouts, and then you get into the small, much smaller response issues.
In the non-injury vehicle accident, you don't necessarily, they don't know usually till they get there
Correct.
whether there's an injury, right?
Correct, yep.
Yeah.
So, moving on, uniform personnel per thousand. We're a lean department, comparative speaking.
So, question, Mike. Another dimension of that would be those fire departments that work off of property versus general revenue type taxes.
So
Or a special assessment, but just, that always matters, I think, in this discussion.
yeah, and for most of these are authorities who
Could you
do.
back up a second to that other one? I think I missed that one. No, okay. I guess go forward. Okay.
Okay, and then operations and maintenance budget, again, we have a, comparatively speaking, when you compare South Metro and West Metro especially, this is an interesting slide. This all comes from Poudre Fire Authority. Every year puts out an annual report where they collect all this data, so we just use their report.
What exactly do you think South Metro is doing that nobody else is doing?
I have absolutely no idea.
Spent a lot of money.
Well, it could have been like 1 year's equipment acquisition
Yeah,
too, so,
That's OpEx, not CapEx. Is that what you said?
well, it says operation.
Yeah, this is operation and maintenance.
It'd be interesting to see if they do that every year.
Yeah, a history of all this stuff would be good.
Well, and as we move forward, that's part of the goal, is
Yeah.
I mean,
to keep maintaining this kind of information.
Wes, part of this, if you go back one more, there you go. I mean, it's pretty correlated with how many people.
Sure,
we've got.
I mean, they've got
3 times.
Yeah.
what we've got.
And they're spending a lot. I mean, obviously, it's going towards, staff.
Sure. Well, and then you look at
We're pretty efficient.
the next one, the number of fires we respond to. We also respond to the least number
I'm pretty proud of our numbers.
of fires as well.
You guys realize we do more calls than South Metro.
Right.
So kudos to these guys and their calls.
Yeah, we're darn efficient.
And their EMS calls, though, for the most part.
And that's,
Everybody's on.
It's the same person.
and that's the cause in the city?
These are specific to fires that LFR responds to, so
I mean,
for per capita.
But-
This is not just the city of Littleton, this is their entire service area.
But does it include, let's say, when we go 300 miles away to help put a fire out?
That, no. Because
Okay.
that's a really good highways in there. But yeah, Greeley's got, five times what we do. for
Well, they've
fires.
also got oil wells.
Now we're moving on to police. We're about in the middle when you look at police officers per thousand. And here we're looking at tickets. We had a year where, in 2011, where we didn't, usually we're right around 12,000, and for some reason in 2011.
That was
we had
when we didn't have that officer, isn't it, doing traffic tickets and all that one year when we were...
Yeah, you can usually just correlate that to staffing availability. It's just directly.
So, and then total annual tickets, you can see the same. Reported arrests, we're on the low end of a lot of the communities. Centennial, Golden, Littleton, and Wheat Ridge, and then you look at some of the bigger communities. Inglewood, though, is up there for their size.
We're a well-behaved community.
We are. And then arrests per thousand, 37 compared to Inglewood at 108. And this is straight off the CBI Crime in Colorado database. Moving on to the museum, we're looking at about 5% growth from 2005 when the new addition went into.
Can I just make a comment, Mike? Sure. Just since we just did it, and I was familiar with it. There were some police grants that would not be available to Littleton because we're a relatively safe community. Englewood could reap those grants pretty regularly because of that. There you go. And I'm familiar with that one. So sometimes the ability to get that grant is not always good news.
But if we want more grants, we got to really step up the crime.
Absolutely.
Well, it looks like our seniors are better behaved than we, Reg. Right?
I think you're right.
So it will be interesting in the left column to see the percentages of arrests that, not just the numbers, the percentages of arrests that are adults versus juveniles. I mean, some of those are pretty significant juvenile arrests. I mean, it looks like, even though the numbers don't necessarily.
Well, Englewood is just the city, though.
Correct. These are all just within the city limits.
Why would Englewood be so high?
Yeah, it could be.
But now Bruce could comment on this. We might not arrest so many because maybe the way when somebody's stopped, the way you guys deal with them, well, the way the department deals with them might not be quite so arrest hungry. Is that possible?
I think some cities evaluate what is an arrest differently, and the example I would give you is a traffic ticket an arrest. That's one that's been a challenge over the years, that some cities decide, yes, that's an official detention, therefore it's an arrest. And we would say, well, you know what, it was a ticket, it was an administrative matter, and we don't consider that an arrest because we didn't take the person into custody specifically and remove them from the scene. And so some of these definitions, it's problematic in the whole. I'm sure it is with every one of these professions.
And you have to take all of this with a grain of salt, definitely.
Every one of these is locally decided. Absolutely good.
We just had this discussion at the judicial team about arrests compared to a ticket.
This is data.
Moving on to museum, had a big year in 2010.
Just before you leave the arrests and.
You're not going to move on.
No, well, we like the parts to get into to kind of get underneath some of that going forward, Mike, would be when you talk about total arrests, what are they for? You know, because that would start to get to some of Bruce's point. Was it a traffic arrest that they somehow dealt with, or was it an actual breaking and entry item? And that would be one of the things.
And some of the CBI data does have some of the more violent crimes broken.
Right, and so that would be something I think could help us get a little bit below the covers on that.
Don't we get in our, those monthly reports there's a crime report?
Right, and
breaks it
that
out by
has
crime.
our data, but it doesn't have the comparison for the others.
So we probably should have opened again with kind of a preface of what we're doing, which is, this is what we're intending to put this is on our website as our dashboard. It's kind of the up-and-coming thing the communities do. And so the goal here is not to have the depth behind every single one of these necessarily, because there may be a level that the council's interested in, and then there might be a higher level that the community's interested in. But what we're really looking for today is, do you think this is valuable data that we should be putting up on our dashboard? There are software packages that we're evaluating right now that will link to the greatest extent that we can tie the Golden data here as an example to data actually out of Golden or storage houses that municipalities are now starting to go to. It truly could, to the extent that we can, we want this to be live data and linked in there, but it will be a high level enough that you as an individual citizen of any community that want to go drill down into it, you're still going to have to go do the research. This is kind of that snapshot in there. And our analysis, I mean, obviously Chief Stevens could probably tell you that analysis because he's paying attention not just to Littleton, but he's paying attention to all of us. But this is, so we're going to put this on the dashboard link on our website where people can not just scroll down here, but be able to say, I'm interested
was my whole closing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I told you you had 27 minutes.
They have questions. I've covered this one.
Go back to that. Yes, so on this,
Just keep looking back and forth.
so this one is a bit misleading. You really should have a 0 point on there because there's $115,000 below. So what looks like this incredible
Dollars.
zigzag.
No, this is attendance numbers.
Population.
No, but it's still, no, I understand that, but because the fluctuation isn't really all that great, because there's no, the bottom part of the chart
Sure.
starts at 115,000, is all I'm saying. There's just either that or you use the jaggedy line to remind people that this is really way up here.
Well, that's why I did this line.
Yeah.
Which shows the general growth rate from '05 to '07, which is about 5.5%.
Otherwise, that little number would hardly, the graph itself would be,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
this is a fairly significant spike, about
Right.
15,000.
But you know what that's probably attributable to, because this is one of the dynamics that came out of the crashing recession in 2008, is that people spent less money on things, and so libraries saw a huge boom.
Yeah. Well, this is museum.
Oh,
which is
museums,
a great
That too.
free thing for families.
same thing.
Moving on.
Thank you.
Can you go back to that one?
Where's the
Could you
lead?
go back to that grant thing?
Really? Do you want me to go back?
No.
Thank you.
Libraries. Here we are. Circulation per capita, we're in the middle. I'm kind of in the low middle there. Here with library staff, we're in kind of the high middle there. And this is straight from all the libraries in the state report to Library Research Service. And so this is what everyone uses for their stats.
Now, recognizing we have certain sections of the city that don't consider Bemis necessarily their local library.
Sure.
So that doesn't reflect folks that may be going over to the branch at South Glen
Does not.
because it's closer for them.
And does that include the electronic stuff too?
This is whatever the library themselves report to this service. This is
Okay.
all the entire circulation,
Well, right.
which is changing, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of what I'm wondering is, do they report that too? Or is this the hard stuff from the library?
I think
So-
it's everything.
Okay,
That's at least my understanding.
thank you.
Total expenditure per capita, we're again in about the high middle there. Program attendance, we have some of the highest program attendance in the state.
Because we
when it
got
comes
some
down.
of the best stuff in the state.
Moving on to our housing stock. I'll be quick. Owner occupied versus renter occupied. You're seeing the split here. We actually have a growing number of owner occupied units. Here, renter versus owner occupied in select cities. This is where I was mentioning Inglewood is actually 51% renter, whereas Centennial 84% owner population. In Littleton, we're about a 1/3, 2/3 split. Nationally, it's about 65% homeowner, is the homeownership rate. So we're right in line with national numbers for renter versus owner.
Now, with that renter versus owner and looking at that, Mike, is that, when you're looking at the national number, is that including all residences or primarily suburban areas?
That's the national numbers everywhere.
Everywhere.
That's everything. This looks at the rental could be homes or multifamily, and same with ownership could be condos or everything.
What do you think that number will do if we were to get the apartments that have been approved? This past year, percentage would go, what, to 61?
It would change slightly. I mean, with Marathon, you're looking at both for sale and rental properties. So I can't remember the split on that, but basically it wouldn't jump this significantly.
Yeah, I think the split, it was 60-40
So I want to say 60/40,
I think 400 were
So the ratio is pretty much,
owner occupied, yeah.
ratio.
Unless there's speculation and people buy them up to rent.
And of course, if it changes around the whole construction defects issue, I mean, you're going to see some of the units that were
You'll see conversions.
from apartments to condos. Right.
So 50% of this is back from the study that Patty Silverstein did for us. 50% of our stock, our housing stock, both owner and renter occupied, was built from 1940 to 1979. So we have an old housing stock.
And that was one of the things that I think at the Dr. Cog thing, she said that's when people moved here. That's why we've
Correct.
got lots of older people here,
Here.
because they came and they stayed.
Post World War II to right after Vietnam. So.
Yeah, and now we're that much older.
Well, District 2, I mean, those are all like 1960 vintage for the most part. Apartment buildings.
Yeah, but I'm saying even the owner-occupied stuff, then people are staying in their houses. They love Littleton. They built that house and they stayed.
Oh, and I'll get to the housing, what's selling, and that's coming up here pretty quick, too. Peggy, you're jumping ahead of me.
Sorry.
Hold on. Well,
She ran ahead.
What's growing here? Owner-occupied percent growth is, we're faster growing in the owner-occupied side than we are the renter-occupied side.
And what I've seen in some places is places that were being rented are now owner-occupied.
And that's what that indicates.
Well, and what you have, too, is after the Great Recession, you had a number of people who needed to move but couldn't sell their homes, so a lot of them rented them. And now you're seeing people being able to sell their homes now, and so oftentimes they're getting out of those. Housing units with available vehicles. When you were talking about in considering the number of apartments that are moving in, this was an item that was brought up fairly regularly. 75%, and this is census data, American Community Survey data, 75% of the rental units in Littleton have one or no vehicle, with the other 25% being two or more. So, owner-occupied, it's a little different, of course. You're looking the other way. That was interesting as well.
And I would think, too, that would be based on, in some regards, on income of the renters.
No, I'm sure.
You know, if you go over to the northeast quadrant of District 2, where it's going to be lower income, they're likely to have one vehicle.
Mm-hmm. And 15% have no vehicle.
Gee, I wonder where they live.
Rental vacancy rates.
It's not light rail.
There's a reason why Littleton is attractive for rentals. We're at 2.4% rental vacancy rate in earlier this year. That's effectively zero.
That's outstanding.
The rest of the Denver metro area was at 4.2, which 5 is considered full. So, but if I recall, we were the third lowest rental vacancy rate in the Denver metro area. Total sales as a percentage of total housing units, and this is 2011. Our houses don't turn over, and this gets to the fact that Peggy mentioned, that people like to live here, and they don't like to leave. Average turnover rate is about 0.9 of total housing units. Even when you factor in just the owner-occupied units, this is total housing units, this is just owner-occupied units, we 1% turnover in 2011, whereas in Englewood, 1.7, Golden 2.5, Wheat Ridge 1.4. So people like to stay here.
And I did see a graph on rentals turnovers.
I don't have that information.
That would be interesting, too.
Average sale price. When I was house shopping, Littleton had a premium, and to live in Littleton, it shows. There's a little bit, when you compare it across the communities, Littleton's above the Denver metro average and behind Centennial and Golden.
Do we have a square footage? I mean, per square foot?
No, and if I recall, that information was provided back when we did the housing study. I don't have it in here.
I know that the assessor had square footage pieces, and we're very much at a premium.
Oh, yeah.
When you start to look at, and that was just Arapahoe County he was dealing with, but when you compared it to other communities in Arapahoe County, we not only do we have a premium on some absolute price in general, But very much when you start to take a look at your square footage and you start to look at the value from that.
Well, it's an indication of supply and demand.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, if we had more supply, our prices would go down.
And here you go with that supply and demand piece. The first 6 months of the year, we had only 56 houses sold, whereas other communities, Inglewood, almost 100, Wheat Ridge, 63. Consistently, we're on the lower end of those home sales, which just talks about that supply and demand piece. This was something that I was surprised by. We contacted city building departments to get information on permit data. Total residential permits, we lead the pack in those that actually responded to us, which were Wheat Ridge, Golden, and Inglewood. Residential permit valuation were huge compared to the other communities, which I was surprised by. And even when you look at permit value per housing units or per capita, we're still leading the pack. So when people are investing in their homes, they're investing more than what others do in their community, and in the other communities.
And this is for existing places, right?
This is total residential permits, so this could be construction.
New ones too.
But if you'll notice, maybe I get to that in a little bit. We're looking at 2, 7, 3 homes being built. So it's
That's what that
you're
graph-
jumping ahead again.
So that graph was rehab.
This could be new homes, but it for the most part it's rehabs, rehabilitation.
I was going to say,
Moving on to the residential and commercial building activity totals. Where are we? Here we are. Almost $300 million in over 5 years. Per capita.
one of those homes is that one down on.
Yeah, South Branch, yes. 1,000 square feet.
The big one.
We are paying attention.
I know you are. Per capita, when you look at a 5-year per capita value, we're third among those that we compared against. This is total buildings, so construction permits for total buildings, 18,372. And then when you look at total housing units that resulted in, so obviously there was a multi-family construction there, but for the most part, we're doing small.
So that was when was Electron built?
Lexington. This would have been 2010, so right around that time.
Yeah.
And my last 2 graphs relate to LPS. So last 2, see, I did it within an hour. We have a drop here of about, 6% from 99 to 2011 in resident students enrolling in LPS.
Are these folks within the district?
Correct. Resident students.
This is not their total participation, because they keep on increasing their percentage of out of district.
Correct. And that's what, so right now there's about, what used to be about 13%, now is about 19% for out of district.
That's 2 years ago.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Correct.
And the
But
folks on my block are working to get kids into school, except for my house, so.
My son is in LPS, and his best friends live in Ken, Carroll, and Parker.
Nice for you, huh?
Yeah, it's very, very pleasant driving him to his friend's house. And here you look at percentage change over that decade. Statewide, there's generally about 14% growth, and we're looking at about a negative 8% growth.
That's the overall
That's
population
overall.
of students.
Correct.
Yeah, but look at Sheridan and Newman.
Yeah, and then you look at some of these other communities, but notice these are all older communities in our neck of the woods where they're losing population.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to say that's the last one.
Nice job, Mike.
Good job, really good job.
27, I tried 27 minutes. It was Sure. And what Michael said earlier, that was my ending.
Okay. Nice ending. Okay, unless there's anything else, we're adjourned.